Illinois forward Will Riley has not yet decided if he's coming back to Illinois or going to the NBA. So let's help decide for him.
You are Locked On Illini, your daily podcast on the Illinois Fighting Illini. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome one, welcome all to another edition of Locked On Illini. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $250 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Thank you, FanDuel. My name is Sonny Verma. You can find me on all your favorite social media platforms, Locked On Illini, or right here at the Sonny V. I always appreciate conversations each and every day with the community. If you're not in the Discord already, we're just about to hit 200 people in that Discord. Link should be in the description. It's us Illini fans talking transfer portal, recruiting. We're talking about the Hoop Summit this weekend. Make sure you join if that's of some interest to you. Something that I know that is going to be of some interest to you is this whole Will Riley decision. Now, it was a week, maybe 2 weeks ago, I did an episode very similar to this where I discussed whether Kasparas Jakubowski should go to the draft or he should come back to Champaign for another season. Now, Illinois has really never been in this sort of position to have two freshmen this good that are going to be considered one and done. And again, all credit to Brad and Orlando and that coaching staff for putting Illinois at this level, and a level that a lot of teams around the country are going to be envious of. But the consensus of my Kasparas video was, as much as I tried, there was just no way with Kasparas being mocked in the top 10. I believe in the latest ESPN, he was mocked at number 9. I just ultimately came to the conclusion that there's really no justification in my head of telling Kasparas to come back to Illinois. It just simply didn't make sense to me. And again, I'm having this conversation based as if I'm a family member of said player, right? So that episode was if I'm Kasparas' father. This one is if I'm the Will Riley family. So I'm looking at it selfishly from the Will side. But I will say that ultimately, whatever decision I come to by the end of the segment, it's a lot more conflicted than the Kasparas one. And, I think it's plenty obvious why. Let's just first start off with Will's stats this year. Not that I need to tell you all about it. National media love to remind everyone that Will Riley was the highest ranked recruit we've had in the modern era since, I believe it was D. Brown way back when. Overall, for the season, he played 35 minutes, averaged 12.6 points per game on 43% shooting and 32.6% three-point shooting. But Will's season is more so kind of described, I think, more so on like a monthly basis, right? So he had a really solid start to the season. 7 games played in November. He averaged 15.5 points, almost 5 rebounds, and 2 assists on 50% three-point shooting. The first month of the season, we were like, okay, Will's gone, KJ's gone, Illinois got 2 one-and-dones. Let's just enjoy this while we can. Will did end up struggling a little bit in December, January, and February. Not so much in February, but in December and January. In December, he averaged 8.5 points on and shooting 13%. Is that right? 13% from three-point range. And in January, he averaged 7.5 points, shooting 26% from three-point range. And that's when you kind of saw that, maybe Will wasn't quite as ready as we thought for the college basketball world. Like, hey, it's one thing looking like a world beater against teams that you should be beating and that teams you're clearly more talented than. But once Big Ten season hit, well, things got a lot more faster for Will and looked like he was having trouble adapting. Then February hit. And in 8 games in February, I think is when he kind of took control of the narrative and quite honestly became, if not the best, one of our best players for Illinois. In February, he averaged 15.6 points per game on 33% three-point shooting, 47.4% regular shooting, and 5 rebounds per game and 3.5 assists. Again, you kind of saw him maturing into his more all-around game. Now, keep in mind, when Will came to Illinois as a as a high schooler, we knew he could score. I truly do think that the playmaking, and this is the key that I kind of want to talk about, the playmaking aspect that Will showed by the end of the season is something that at least most of us who watched his film did not expect. I knew he was going to come to Illinois and be one of the best scorers in America because that's what his tape suggested. And he ended up being one of them. But the fact that his all-around game offensively is what was certainly a pleasant surprise. In March, he played 6 games, averaged over 16 points per game, again, almost 5 rebounds, and shot 33% from three-point range. And again, in February and March, you really saw him blossoming into the player that we all thought he could become. And now we sit here in early April, and we're kind of in a wait-and-see mode on what Will is going to ultimately decide to do when it comes to whether he's going to enter the NBA draft or not. Now, he's going to go to NBA draft camp because he should. And of course he should, because the only way to find out how much the NBA values you is to talk to NBA GMs, to NBA scouts. And so we can base it off mock drafts now. The new ESPN mock draft came out just 2 days ago. And to me, the most trusted source is Jonathan Givony. And he had Will Riley go at 16 in the upcoming drafts. Sam Vecini from The Athletic had him in the second round in 39. And that's, again, where this Will Riley conundrum lies. Because if he's going anywhere near 16, you have to tell him to go. If he's anywhere near 39, well, then, of course, it makes sense to stay. Now, what I did with the Gasparis conversation is I basically took a look at the salaries for said players at a certain spot. So that's basically what I'm going to do here with Will as well. At the 16th pick in the rookie scale, Will Riley would be making $4 million in his first year and $4.2 million in his second year of his rookie contract. Now, what he's going to make if he comes back to Illinois, I don't know, you don't know, and your favorite insider probably doesn't know. But you have a guy like Ian Jackson, a guy that Illinois is very interested in, the kid from North Carolina. Reportedly now he's seeking $3+ million in order to come back to college basketball for his next destination. JT Toppin, one of the best players in all of college basketball, supposedly has a $4 million price tag. Now, I don't think Will's going to be as high as Toppin, but if I'm Will Riley's camp, I'm absolutely asking for 2.5, if not 3. Will Riley had a better freshman year than Ian Jackson did. So let's just say, hypothetically, for the sake of this argument, I'm just going to say $2.5 million is what Illinois can offer. Again, I don't know that number. That's just a number I'm coming up with, I guess, as an educated guess. At 2.5 for 1 year, when you can make 4 in your first year as the 16th pick in the draft, I think it's a no-brainer. And I think you agree it's a no-brainer. Not only would you get 4, you'd essentially make $8.2 million guaranteed in your first 2 years in the NBA. And you're not going to develop, in my opinion, enough to overcome that. But let's bump him down. Let's just bump him down to the end of the first round. Okay, pick 29, again, for the sake of conversation. At 29, in his first year, he'd be making $2.5 million. In his second year, he'd be making $2.6 million. And now it's time for a conversation. The Will Riley we saw at the end of this past season truly has the potential to be not just an all Big Ten performer, but with the right team, which I think, quite honestly, Brad Underwood is building, has a chance to showcase Will late into March. I've said all along, I really like the team that the coaching staff is putting together right now, bringing on Big Z, David Mirkovich, and they're still experimenting with the transfer portal. But the team lacks a star, a superstar. Will Riley absolutely can be, and we've seen it, and we've seen it in Brad's system. So there is an alternate world out there where he does decide to come back to Illinois. Maybe the feedback he gets is, hey, go bulk up a little bit. A summer of Fletch could really help a kid like Will Riley out. Get him a little heavier, 15, 20 pounds heavier. He comes into next year, and normally college basketball players make their biggest leaps in their second season of college basketball. So when you're talking about averages of 13 points per game for Will Riley, if he were to come back to Champaign, I can easily see him averaging 18 plus points. Because again, Will is not just one of the best scorers in the Big Ten. Will Riley, he, in his senior year in high school, could have come to college basketball and be one of the better scorers. He's that good. He's that special when it comes to scoring. But it's the playmaking aspect. Him and Kylan Boswell and Ivisic being the foundation parts, all three guys can make plays for your basketball team. And we saw that a lot of that at the end of last year when Kasparis was struggling with his turnovers. Will kind of took on those playmaking responsibilities, and he excelled. So now all of a sudden, let's just say hypothetically, Will does come back. Illinois has a relatively successful season. Let's just say, 23, 24 wins and a Elite Eight appearance. Okay. And honestly, if Will came back, that would probably be my expectation, because I think this team, the bench part of this team, the supporting cast is better than last year's team. And Will Riley, this year's version is going to be better than the version last year. I think it absolutely could be an Elite 8 team, if not a Final Four team. Let's say now he has a chance to get him to vault himself into what KJ was, the 9th overall pick. He's still only going to be, 19, 20 years old? At the 9th pick in his first year, Will would be making $5.75 million. And in his second year, make over $6 million. So now you're talking about, again, for this hypothetical, at number 29, he'd be making 2.5. He can make 2.5. I feel pretty comfortable saying that at Illinois if he wanted to for 1 year next year. But is the gamble worth it that you take the 2.5 for the hopes that the following year you're able to make 5.75? And that's what essentially the Will Riley camp has to debate back and forth. There's always a risk in coming back to college basketball, because that 5.75 I'm talking about, that won't necessarily always be there. You risk getting hurt. You risk struggling. Maybe just because most players make their biggest jump from freshman year to sophomore year, doesn't mean that everybody does. What if the team struggles? Obviously, there's a lot of different influences and new players that are be coming in the front court. What if the team doesn't quite gel? These are all the things that the Riley camp's going to have to weigh back and forth. And, ultimately, when I come to my final conclusion now about whether Will comes back, I feel like I'm taking a cop-out answer, but it's absolutely true. If he goes to the draft camps and is projected anywhere in the top 20, I don't think he has a choice. And again, me speaking selfishly from the Riley camp, not as an Illinois fan, where a lot of us are going to be coming from, because it's not our money. It's easy for us to say, come back to Illinois and work on your game. I'm speaking from the Riley camp as if I'm Will Riley's uncle or agent or whatnot. I think if he's top 20, he's got to go to the league, as he should. Maybe even top 25. But if there's even a slight doubt that he may not be in the top 25, let's just say he's gotten a promise from a team in the mid-20s, but he's not super confident on it, and he may fall into the first round or even second round. Keep in mind, Shannon Jr. was supposed to go a lot higher in the draft than he did. I think he's got to come back then. And that's me trying to be objective here. I think Will truly does fit the system. We've seen how well he can excel as the main guy here at Illinois. He was our best player by the end of the season. And I think he can only get better next year. And while this year, Kasparis is being projected in the top 10. Again, it was 9 in the ESPN mock draft I'm referencing earlier. I think Will Riley, if he were to come back for one more year and have another college season under his belt, he could be even higher than that. Let me know your guys' thoughts. Again, Don't tell me from an Illinois perspective, because that's not fair. Talk to me as if you're Will Riley's father, Will Riley's mother, and let me know what you would do. The NBA playoffs are almost here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you get a chance to win $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. From three-pointers to steals to assists, FanDuel has so many ways to bet your favorite props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. Don't miss out. Head on over to FanDuel.com and claim $250 in bonus bets today. Speaking of coming back, what about Ben Humrichous? So Derek Piper on the Tay and Piper radio show a couple days ago mentioned that the staff, Brad Underwood and the coaching staff, actually really does want Ben Humrichous to return to next year's team. Now, this would be with the understanding that Ben would come back at a reduced role, a role where he would probably what he looked like at the end of last year, where he played only, 15 minutes a game or so. And of course, you would assume a discounted NIL bag. But this just got me wondering, and I knew I was very interested in hearing your guys' comments on whether you would want Ben Humrichous back. By the way, we have 13 likes in here, 75 people watching. So again, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel and make sure you hit that like button. It seems like every time I go live and we all smash the like button at the same time, something good happens. So who knows? If you hit the like button now, Will Riley might see it and say, hey, it's now time for me to announce that I'm coming back to Champaign next season. Ben's tenure with Illinois is something I feel like we're going to be talking about for a while, because in the offseason, we had just gotten over Marcus Damask and the incredible single season that he had at Illinois. Brad Underwood and the coaching staff tried to get him a waiver to come back for one more season. And as usually is the case when the NCAA makes a ruling again about an Illinois topic, it goes against Illinois. And so that's what happened. And maybe it's lazy of us, but when Ben Humrichous decided to commit to Champaign, a lot of us got excited again. Now, maybe this was the Domask replacement. I mean, John Fanta, beloved college basketball personality, called Ben Humrichous possibly the next Dalton Knecht. And we know when Brad Underwood gets into his moods, he can spout out as much hyperbole as anybody. He talked about how great Ben looked in practice and that he was the greatest shooter he's ever had. And look, it was not a very long time ago. We had a guy like Alfonso Plummer launching threes. And we know what good shooters look like. Didn't quite work out for Ben. Again, I'm not going to be very mean towards Ben because most of you guys know on this channel, I probably stuck up for Ben more than most. I saw the value that he did provide. He was clearly not built for the role that he was brought in here for. And if anything, it's a good thing that Illinois has kind of recognized that they're not going to try to squeeze him into the same role again this year. Sometimes you just misfire on talent evaluations, and that's what happened here. He shot 40+% from three-point land last year at Evansville. This year, it dropped to, I believe it was 34%. The skills didn't quite translate. Defensively, on playing one-on-one, he was a disaster. I think he was a pretty decent help defender, and that's why he did have a lot of late minutes at the end of games that drove a lot of fans crazy. But there's also the aspect of the gravity that Ben Humrichous brings back. This is where I'm confused. This is where I'm having a conversation with you guys, and that's why I want to know your thoughts in the comment section. I think a month ago, even 2-3 weeks ago, I would be excited. Excited is the wrong word. Let me take that back. I'd be completely okay and content with Ben coming back to next year's roster. Why? Retention. Ben is a good culture guy. Again, we may not like him for his struggles on the court, but overall, every video I've seen of him, whether it's on the court, basketball related, not basketball related, everything seems to dictate that he's a good kid. We know he was fine in the locker room because otherwise, why else would Brad Underwood and the coaching staff want him back? He would be a fifth-year college basketball player at that point, if I'm doing my math right. So again, you want that veteran experience, and we know he can play a role in the Big Ten, right? And who knows? Maybe this 1 year could be an aberration, and next year he jumps right back to his 40+% three-point shooting, his okay help defense, and at 10, 15 minutes a game, I think that would be valued. But what I struggle with is the new additions that this team has had. With Tomislav, with Zvonimir Ivisic, and now with David Mrkovic, the thought I'm struggling to get over is Ben Humrichous just adding the same thing. And I'm not talking aesthetically. I'm talking aesthetically on the court. I really think when you have Zvonimir, when you have Tommy, and when you have Dave, what you want to counterbalance that for your big man rotation is the opposite of those three guys, not just a variation of the same. I want a guy who is 6'8". I've mentioned this before, so my everydayers have heard me say this. Find a guy at a lower level, like in Evansville, where Ben Humrichous came from. But he's 6'8", 6'9", and sure, maybe he can't shoot the three-pointer, but he's hustling. He grabs you rebounds. He's a pain in the butt to play against because he's physical and he roughhouses. Only because I think that balances what the team can look like a little bit more. Like, that is what Big Z, Big T, and David are not. And so that's why I wonder, and I sit here, because I'm going to be talking about this soon. Hopefully we get some pretty decent Dame Sarr news over the weekend. This roster is almost done. It's pretty much settled outside maybe 2 or 3 more pieces. Keep in mind, just because there's 15 scholarships, Brad only plays 8 or 9 guys. And so we might already be at our 8 and 9. And so, again, where does Ben fit in all this? Why come back if he's going to be, I understand, even if it's not at the starter role, but even if he's playing 10, 15, okay, well, if he's playing 10 and 15 minutes, you have Tomislav starting. I'm assuming David Mrkovic is starting at power forward. So you have Zvonimir as the backup. Are you rotating 4 bigs? And then Zvonimir and Ben Humrichous, like, they're rotating minutes? Then you simply don't have room for another rotating big, the junkyard dog type of player I described earlier. Then you're pretty much set in the front court. And I just don't know if I'm comfortable being set in the front court with those 4 guys. I'm really curious on your guys' thoughts. I know Ben, again, is a lightning rod when it comes to having opinions. But, do you see the positive in bringing a guy like Ben back? Because, again, when he's on the floor, let's be honest, just because his three-point percentage struggled a bit last year, he still brings a sense of gravity to him. That 5-out offense will work with a guy like Ben Humrichous. Now, did Ben miss more open shots than we would have liked? Sure. But we don't know if that's what's going to happen next year. And if it's at a limited role with limited NIL and a guy who's good for the culture, I don't know. I'm starting to think that I can understand the positives of it. For me, the reason I'm not sure I'd be as emphatic as Brad Underwood and the coaching staff is I just think that we can replace a Ben with someone who's completely not like Ben. And that's kind of what this team needs. All right, let's get to the comments real quick. Again, if you haven't liked and subscribed to this channel yet, please do. We're getting close to 2,900 subs or something like that. Incredible. And if you really want to do me a favor, this show is free of charge each and every day, including the weekends. And if you are a YouTube watcher, I sincerely do appreciate you. But if you'd really like to support the show, what I really could use is you go to your favorite audio platform. Please leave me a 5-star review. You can leave a question, a comment. If it's a question on the show, I will read it in a future mailbag. And again, this is my way of continuing to create content for you guys, being able to create content for you guys each and every day, free of charge. All I ask is for maybe a minute or two of your time, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pocket Cast, whatever it is you use, Amazon. Please download and just leave a 5-star review. I would really appreciate that. Tyler says, I think if he stays, he's a lottery pick, so I'd have him coming back for one more year. Tyler, I'm assuming you're talking about Will Riley and not Ben Humrichous. I'm teasing, of course. And I agree with you. I think that's the conclusion that I came up with at the end of that first segment. I think that there's just so much potential. And the team, if Illinois and Brad Underwood were struggling to build the rest of the roster, I could be more inclined to go back to the NBA because of the unknown for Riley and his family. But we see what the roster for the most part looks like. And it looks pretty solid to me. Right now, I think it's at minimum top third Big Ten roster. Again, it's missing the stars, but maybe with a guy like Dame Sar next year, or Will Riley, certainly, this team becomes one of the upper echelon teams. Joe says ILL, he still hasn't declared. Why is that? Because you don't need to. You're seeing names pop in every now and then declaring for the NBA draft. Well, Jace Richardson just did a couple days ago, but there's no need to declare. Just go to draft camp and see what happens. Garrett says, I've seen him go as high as 15 in this year's draft, which is unfortunate for us. Yeah, Garrett, if he goes 15, anywhere in the top 20, no-brainer. 20 to 25, I still say go to the NBA draft. As long as you were very, very confident you're going to the top 25. If you're thinking mid-20s, but not confident about it, that's when I think you start to have that conversation. And Joe, I saw your questions about Morez. I don't think it's appropriate for me to discuss something like that on the show, especially a kid like that. I'm trying to keep it sports related. Philip says the 3 million threshold is around pick 20. So if he doesn't get a firm top 20 commitment, he should come back. Yeah, I'm Philip. That's kind of where I'm at. Johnny says, give me Riley, Sar, Jackson, and the 6'11 guy from FSU and call it a day. Absolutely, Johnny. I think tomorrow's episode is going to be me the dead period ends tonight at midnight. So starting tomorrow, the staff can start contacting these transfer portal targets again. And I think tomorrow I'm going to kind of talk about the guys that we're targeting at the moment and see how viable it is that some of these guys that even you mentioned might be coming to Champaign. Philip says, any other year, this Will is an easy lottery pick, but this is a loaded draft. Why not take a nice payday to stay one more year and develop? I'm not arguing with you. Alex says, Sonny has to consider there's no tax on NIL. I don't know that, Alex, so thanks for pointing that out. Jay says, why haven't Riley and KJ announced their decisions yet? Because they don't need to. Yeah, I mentioned that earlier. I appreciate that. Joe brings up a great point. If every Locked On Illini subscriber donates $100, we could offer Will Riley another $230,000. You know what? You don't even have to do that. Just hit the like button and hit the subscribe button. I'll be okay with that. What else do we have? Joe says everyone will miss KJ next year. The kid was solid. Yeah. The thing is, I don't think Illinois will realize just what good of a player that we had until he's gone. Because now that we seem to be the type of team that will be able to get these top players year in and year out. Look, KJ, Will this past year, possibly Dame Sar this year. We're going to see that just because someone is highly rated doesn't mean that they're coming in as a refined product. And for the flaws that KJ had, which of course was glaring, his turnovers, he was a very, very good basketball player. And I just think the timing of him being the first big top freshman we've had in a very, very long time, I think was just, it's something that a lot of the Illini fans didn't get to appreciate the way they wanted to. School Stuff says, totally agree with the TSJ comparison. KJ and Will would likely spend the year in the G League, as neither of them are as good as Terrence Shannon Jr. Might as well get that NIL. That's right, School. I actually forgot to bring that up. I don't think Will is going to get better in the development league, the G League. I just don't think that's his game's going to translate to that very well. And that's also why I'm so insistent, top 20, top 25 minimum. Because if he has to go down like Terrence had to at the beginning of the year, I think the Riley family and the Riley camp are going to regret that decision. Alex says, I think coming back with the potential of being a top 5 player is very appealing. If he's at any spot 20 or worse, especially since NIL is not taxable. Yeah. And again, that's probably one of the reasons. I don't think the Riley camp has decided yet. I truly don't. I think everyone right now, they have a decision to make. We'll see what he grades out as, what measures out as. And once he really gets into the faces of a lot of these scouts, a lot of these GMs, well, then we'll find out exactly what happened. All right, guys, I'm going to wrap it up. We're already at 30 minutes. Again, I really appreciate you guys. Up to 29 likes, 100 people watching. On your way out, if you don't mind hitting that like button, I'd sincerely appreciate it. Our Discord is popping. So the link should be in the description. I'm just going to continue the conversation right on over there. This weekend, I'm still planning on doing a live watch party for this the Hoop Summit, so we can watch David Mirkovic and possibly future Illini Tomislav play for the first time and play together. And so if that's something you're interested in, let us know in the Discord, or join the Discord. I'll probably drop a link in there, or email me at talkillini@gmail.com. There's also a new meetup. We're having the official first time ever Locked On Illini meetup on June 25th for the NBA draft. So at least we get to watch Kasparis go in the lottery. If those are things you're interested in, again, just hit me up, whether it's in Discord or social media, and I'll give you more details. Until next time, ILO. Love you guys.